curious what your reaction to all this is. You start the year, you get Tom Brady, Bruce is in his second season, and you're in you're in the Super Bowl in your home stadium. I mean, just how has this year gone? What can you say about it?
Oh wow, it's been a lot of fun in a very challenging year with everything that's going on in the world, the pandemic. So it's a kind of a strange feeling that hopefully we never have again. But I look back at this time last year compared to where we're at right now, and we still have unfinished business. Everybody is very focused on this game. I can assure you that. But just how far we came in a short amount of time in terms of our record and where we're at. And it's just a feeling of being grateful for our ownership for giving us the resources that they had to keep this team together, to go out and get Tom, trade for Gronk, make some other moves during the season, when it would have been very easy for owners to pull the reins back a little bit, for reasons that go along with being in a pandemic, but still wanting us to push forward because they desperately want this. They wanted to be in the Super Bowl. They want to win it like we all did, but they want to do it for the fans. They love the excitement that the Tampa Bay fans have because of this. I think that's what drives them. And I'm just very grateful.
We'll go to Jenna Lane.
Hey, Jason, you spoke of ownership. In this business, patience isn't always afforded to first-time GMs. You went through multiple coaches. You went through multiple quarterbacks. You went through multiple kickers. What has it meant for them to stick by you and allow you to fulfill the vision that you had from when you first started here?
I'm very humbled. And once again, I use the word grateful. Like you said, I've been through a lot with my staff. They've done an incredible job. John and Mike and Rob and all the scouts. I could sit here for a long time naming everybody. I knew that I had a special staff. I knew that with BA, we had a rare coach. I said at the beginning of the year, we have a rare coaching staff. And just for it to finally come together the way it did this year so far, it's just a humbling experience. And I've matured in my position over the last 3-4 years. I was able to learn from a lot of mistakes, and I had a lot. And I would always admit to those. And, listening to my staff more inclusiveness and more teamwork, I think has been the reason that it's come together and we've made better decisions in the last few years. But then having a head coach like Bruce and the relationship that I have with him I don't know if it will ever be repeated. He's just such a unique guy, and we have such a unique, strong bond that we get along well. We even argue well, and to get the result that we want and make the decisions that we've made. It's been awesome.
We'll go to Greg Allman.
Hey, Jason, I know you've had a lot of coaches and GMs that you've worked under and learned from over the years, but I want to ask you about your time with Andy Reid in Philadelphia and what you remember most and how it helped you along the way.
I have just the utmost respect for Andy. I didn't work with him in the role that I'm in right now as the GM.
Right.
But I imagine that it would be very similar to the way my relationship is with Bruce. Just we had a great bond as I was the VP player personnel and the director of player personnel under him in Philly. I think what I've learned the most from observing him was leadership. He's a phenomenal leader, and he was always quick to give credit to people and always quick to take the bullet. And I really appreciated that about him. He's just a great man and obviously a very good, excellent coach. Hall of Fame worthy coach. So just very appreciative. I reflect on my time with him often.
We'll go to Scott Reynolds.
Hey, Jason, congrats on the success. unfortunately for most of your tenure, you had a team that couldn't get out of its own way, that kept beating itself and couldn't get over the hump. You look at the Chicago game and the fire that Tom Brady had, and it seemed like that was the game where you guys stopped beating yourselves. The penalties kind of evaporated. The mistakes were dialed down. What was it about that game? And I think that's why you wanted Tom here, to help change the culture and bring that fire and intensity that he showed on the sidelines. What was it about that plane ride home from that game that seemed to propel this team forward and to have you guys stop beating yourselves?
Yeah, that game was a probably in my career here, we've had a lot of bad losses, but that one was one that really stung the most, I think. And, not only did we lose the way we lost with the penalties and things like that, we also lost Vita. And so I was talking about this the other day with Bruce, actually. I said, gosh, this game still stings. And he said, that's the best thing that happened to us. That game was the best thing that happened to us, looking back in retrospect. So I think he's right. We cleaned up our penalties. We were more disciplined, and it just brought everybody together. So it showed that we're all human, everybody's accountable, needs to be held accountable, and everybody on the roster, everybody in the front office, everybody in the organization. But it brought us closer together.
We'll go to Ira Kaufman.
Jason, for all your years till this season as the GM, part of your job, you got to be the long range view, the salary cap 3 years ahead of time and the ages of the players. And Jason, talk about how that all changed on March 20th. Everything changed in terms of your philosophy, your perspective, and it was all in for this season.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on that. We were obviously all in for this season, but the way that we're set up right now, there's a lot of questions and a lot of unknowns right now yet in terms of what the salary cap is going to be. But I think we're set up beautifully, thanks to Mike Greenberg, Jackie Davidson, making those decisions and giving me their input on how to set up contracts and things like that. So, yeah, we have Tom is 43 years old, and we have some other, I've said this a few times, some other elder statesmen on our roster, but we have a young team, young defense, young secondary, young receivers. We have fairly young offensive line. So I wouldn't say it changed on March 20th. We're still looking long-term, and we're still have to plan long-term the way we set things up. And because of the job that Greenberg and Jackie Davidson have done, we're in that position to do that.
We'll go to Lorenzo Reyes.
Morning, Jason. Congratulations. Speaking of Jackie Davidson, I wanted to ask you specifically about her. Just what she's brought to the organization since you guys hired her earlier this year. And if you could point specifically to maybe one or two moments or tasks that she helped you with, and sort of in terms of just, contracts or roster, or anything that you can share, like that would be very helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, she's awesome. I'm so excited when we had the chance to get her. I've known her for several years now because of her relationship with Mike Greenberg. And Mike Greenberg had always spoken so highly of her and her intelligence, said that she's the smartest person that he's ever worked with, and back in New York when they were together. She's made an impact already in her first year. She's, as advertised, brilliant. She helped us with, every contract that we do is unique. It may seem simple when you read it across the ticker or see it online, see it on Twitter, that, the Bucs signed Antonio Brown to this or signed Leonard Fournette to that. All those contracts have a lot of conversations, a lot of tweaks, a lot of negotiations, and she was a big part in both of those. So I could point to those two right there. I don't know if we would have gotten those done without the work of Jackie and Mike. So hiring her just goes along with the entire philosophy. Bruce loves diversity, and the Glazers have a philosophical view of inclusiveness of all races, all genders with the organization. And it just so happened she's a woman, just so happens that she's African-American, but we hired her because of her resume and what she brings to this organization. Hiring her made us a smarter organization immediately.
We'll go to Mike Reese.
Hey, Jason, congratulations. Up here in New England, I'm curious, what have you observed from Gronk in terms of how he's embraced Florida, this experience with the Bucs, and maybe answering from the perspective of someone that saw him when he was just coming into the league firsthand?
Man, if you're having a bad day, I suggest any of you just go spend a little time with Gronk. He's just lifts you up just by being him. He's funny. We have conversations every day, and I look forward to it. I tell my wife, can't wait to go talk to Gronk at practice today. He's being himself. He's very authentic. He loves the game, and when it's time to be serious, he's very serious. There's a lot of talk of what Tom has done for this locker room, and it's all warranted, but what Gronk has done for this locker room is equally as amazing. Just a great teammate and loves life.
We'll go over to Joey Knight.
Jason, do you have any kind of theory for this unprecedented run of success among Bay Area franchises, whether it's something in the water or whatever? And considering the success of the Lightning and the Rays, did you guys kind of feel pressure to perpetuate that success?
I don't want to say we felt pressure. We were happy for them. I can't speak for everybody. We never really had a meeting about that. But I think it's unbelievable. I think it's great for the city of Tampa. I think it's something that 100 years from now they'll still talk about. During the pandemic, all teams had success. Now we're not finished yet. Once again, so we want to win this thing. I don't know I don't have a theory on why it happened in Tampa. I guess maybe you can chalk it up to the water. I don't know, but I'm just happy it happened.
We'll go to Sarah Walsh.
Hey, Jason, I'm curious, in this time frame, obviously, when you guys were talking to Tom and trying to get him to come to Tampa Bay, I would assume there was some talk of, hey, we can win a Super Bowl. We've got the pieces in place. And I'm wondering if you can share with us what of those conversations maybe happened, and did you reflect at all, in this moment leading now into the Super Bowl, like, oh my God, this is actually come to fruition, what we sort of said could happen?
Well, naturally, I think you envision it when every year in the offseason you want to make some moves that hopefully get your team into the Super Bowl. And I think when you sign a guy like Tom, it makes it a little bit more realistic. And just talking to him the days after we signed him, you could just hear and feel the confidence that he had. And made it a little bit more real. Now, you never take anything for granted. So, we had some highs and lows of the season where things at times looked a little grim. We needed to pull together, but we never lost our confidence. But looking back on some of the things that we talked about, you do kind of want to pinch yourself a little bit, saying, wow, this really did happen. So I can't think of one particular time or one particular conversation that we had, but there were a lot amongst all of us.
We're going to go over to Eric Adelson. We have time for a few more.
Hi, Jason. I'm doing a story on the virtual draft from last year. Obviously, you guys were very successful with that. What did you like the most about the format, and what was the biggest challenge about the format?
Well, what I liked the most was in the months leading up to the draft that we were working from home, and I got a lot of more work done, and I think everybody else did too, without distractions that you have and things that come up during the day in the office. I was able to share the experience with my family, which was the most special part of the whole thing that I'll never forget, and they won't either. We still talk about it to this day. I still have little sticky notes I've kept in the draft room that we set up in our house of my 7-year-old that would write down names of players that I should draft. Just little moments like that, and sharing it at the time when we did draft Tristan, having everybody come in and get a big family hug. It was really cool. Now the part that you don't like is not being able to share that with your coworkers and your scouts, who work so incredibly hard, and they are right now as we speak, with boots on the ground, getting ready for next year's draft. And I can't say enough good things about them. I have a great staff. I talk a lot about the guys in-house, and they deserve tons of credit, more credit than I receive. But the scouts on the road are the lifeblood of the organization, and they, I get a little emotional about it. That's how I came up in the business, and I know what they're going through. So to not have them there with you, it was a little bit of a gut punch, but being with the family was awesome.
We'll go over to John Romano.
Hey, Jason, you guys have had a lot of success the last few years drafting defensive backs. Could you talk about the philosophy of what you're looking for specifically in those players? Is there a common thread that you were seeking?
Yeah, we have had some success recently. We didn't have a lot of success before that. I think trial and error helped with that. But, Todd and his group as staff of defensive coaches are excellent teachers. We had a clear vision of what they were looking for in Todd's scheme, and we liked bigger, longer guys that are physical and smart, and guys that, if they're maybe short on size and length, they have to be extremely tough. And Todd finds a way to work these different talents and skill sets into his defense and change his defense to better utilize what they are. But, it's a really, really good group that we have right now. And, there was a lot of trial and error that went into that. And I'm just happy that these guys it's working out. And Todd and his staff, they deserve a lot of credit, if not all the credit, for the way that these guys have been playing here during the playoff run.
Our last one's going to come from Ben Volen.
Hey, Jason, congrats on getting to this point. I was looking over your resume, and I believe in 1999 and 2000, you were a college scout for the Patriots. Just curious if you had any interactions on the scouting trail with Tom Brady, if you remember what the discussions were like about him leading up to the draft, what you remember about him, when he just got to the Patriots, things of that nature.
Yeah, so I got my first job with the Patriots in 1999. It was my first full-time scouting job for a club. And we went 8-8 that year. Pete Carroll was the coach. He was let go. And then Bill Belichick was hired and went right into draft meetings the minute he walked into the building. And so I got to know him through those meetings, a little intimidating, but he ended up giving me a promotion after that. I did not personally scout Tom. I was a Southeast area scout at the time. I was involved listened to the conversations about him, and we watched tape together, but I can't take any credit for Tom being drafted. I do know that Coach Belichick really had his eye on him for a long time, and it wasn't, we took him in the 6th. We didn't need a quarterback at the time. He had him much higher than that. He and Scott Pioli had him much higher than that on the board. Conversations started with, if I recall correctly, the 3rd round, but and he was still sitting there in the 6th, and they took him. I wish I could take credit for it, but I got to know Tom a little bit in my years there. Never really kept in touch, other than if we happened to play each other and maybe waved to him on the sideline or something. But so when we signed him here and talked on the phone, it was really the first time I've talked to him since 2011 when I was with the Patriots.
All right, that's all we have time for today. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.